Hello and welcome to Endurance Minded. It's the podcast that aims to redefine what it means to reach our full potential by exploring how movement and mindset impacts our lives and how we can all work to show up as the best versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, founder and coach at TEC. In this episode, I speak with Stacy Conte. Stacy is the owner of Mother's Pathway, where she's a coach that focuses on working with mothers as well as other individuals to help them get the most out of their lives, to help them reach their full potential, and to help them really uncover what it is that's holding them back. This is a really amazing episode. If you're an individual like so many of our listeners are, certainly where so many of us find ourselves stuck, whether you're a mother, a parent, or otherwise, if you're someone who finds yourself stuck in putting yourself at the bottom of your to-do list, unable to make time, feel like you're juggling a million things all at once and never quite making progress, never moving in the direction of the things that you want. You feel like you're saying yes to too many things that don't support how you want to live your life and the person that you want to be. If any of this kind of general sentiment resonates, then this is going to be a really amazing episode for you to listen to, because Stacy really shows up and understands what it looks and feels like to be that person that's juggling a million different things, that has the family, the job, that has the PTO board meetings, that has all of the community events, all of the million different things that are so often in our orbit. And she knows what it looks like to be in an unhealthy place with that, or a place that's certainly not in alignment with who she wants to be, how she wants to show up for herself as well as her family and friends. And she made a change, and she shifted into a place that allows her to understand what it looks and feels like to show up in her full capacity and be the best version of herself. So she's a massive advocate for showing up for yourself first, something we've talked about a lot on this podcast, and something that I am an advocate for above all else. We also talk about just what it looks like to prioritize yourself, what it looks like to add value to the relationships that we're in, her version of self-care, and how we can redefine that and understand that to include that in our lives in a more consistent and meaningful way. We talk about removing clutter. So what do we say no to? What are the things that are cluttering our lives, that are entering our orbit, that are bogging us down? And Stacy does a great job of outlining and understanding that, yes, we have a million things that we want to do. Our lives are busy, but there is an opportunity for an upgrade, and there's massive potential on the other side of removing this clutter. And the list goes on. We touch on a variety of different things where Stacy and I share mutual interests and passion, and she was so open and vulnerable and honest, and I really, really enjoyed speaking with her and just having an honest connection around things that we're both so passionate about. Our worlds intersect in so many different ways, from her background as well as her interests and passion and current career of helping others reach their full potential and really, in a sense, kind of get out of their own way and understand what it can look and feel like to step up and step into our full potential. So I hope you'll listen to this one from start to finish. Stacy has amazing insight, and it's such a joy to speak with her. So sit down, carve out some time, get out a notebook, take notes, listen to some of the key parts over again if you need to. We'll be providing a free resource that Stacy is offering up in the show notes as well, so look out for that, and you can check out more of Stacy's work and connect with her via social media, her website, and this free resource. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Stacy Conte. Hello, endurance-minded listeners. I want to tell you about a really amazing opportunity and something that I am massively excited about that's coming up at the end of September of this year. As listeners of our show may know, I've started a new venture back at the beginning of this year called Impact Initiative. An Impact Initiative is focused solely on giving individuals opportunity to the tools and resources they need to reach their full potential. So think part leadership training, part movement, part mindset. It is the culmination and combination of all the things that I care most deeply about. And my work as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and all of the different facets and outlets of my life where I see an opportunity for a conversion and a combination of skills and tools that people can leverage and deploy in the world so that they can go out and make the impact that they want. So with that in mind, we've created an amazing opportunity called Destination Impact. This is going to be September 28th through October 1st. We have an amazing retreat facility in the mountains of North Carolina where we're providing an all-inclusive experience for 4 days for all of our attendees. We have a beautiful property on the top of the Blue Ridge Parkway overlooking an amazing valley. And it's going to be myself and the co-founder of Impact Initiative, Christine Hernandez. We're both going to facilitate this experience along with meals provided by a chef on site. So we really want this to be an immersive experience and something that really provides the opportunity to pattern interrupt and get out of our normal routine so that we can have access to new experiences, new thoughts, new ways of thinking, and clarity in the direction of the things that we care most about. So the way that I like to think about this is if we want to have something different, we have to do something different. And so often we look for solutions in our regular lives. We look for solutions in the pathways and down the same roads that we've taken before. One of the most impactful things we can do is to remove ourselves from those homogenous environments, remove ourselves from the same old of our daily life, and put ourselves in a position to actually experience things and see things in a different way. And that provides access to new ways of thinking, new opportunities for clarity, new ways to think and feel about who we are, what we're doing, and how we go out into the world and make our impact. So that's what Destination Impact is all about. It is that pattern interrupt. It is that opportunity to rethink how we do things, rethink who we are, how we want to show up for ourselves, and how we want to go out in the world and make the impact that we were created for. So if this is something that sounds like you need, then I want to invite you to this retreat opportunity. Destination Impact is for anyone who's looking to really show up and get clarity on how they show up for themselves and how they show up in the world. So again, part movement, part mindset, part leadership training. This is an amazing opportunity to get a comprehensive experience when it comes to really understanding what it is that makes us tick, what it is that makes us thrive, and the tools and relationships and resources we need to take that information, go out in the world, and deploy it in a way that allows us to make the impact we want. So again, that's September 28th through October 1st of this year. You can find out more information in the show notes. Send us a message directly at enduranceminded.com, or you can look at the Impact Initiative website, which is impactinitiative.network, and find all of the information you need. The destination retreats are in the toolbar at the top of our website. So if you're someone looking for a change, if you're looking for that pattern interrupt, if you need to shake things up, if you need access to new knowledge, new people, new relationships, new ways of thinking, then this is for you. And I'm so excited to get this kicked off. It's going to be the first of many, and it's something that I can't wait to provide to our community at large. So again, Destination Impact Retreat, September 28th through October 1st. Let us know. Click on the information in the show notes or reach out if you have any questions. We hope to see you there. Hey, Stacy. Welcome to Endurance Minded. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited to chat. We have lots of places, lots of intersections and kind of our shared interests and passions and what you do and your story. And I'm excited to see where that goes. But one of the things that struck me when I was reading a little bit about you, and we were trading some emails to get set up for this podcast recording, was you mentioned that how important it is to show up for yourself first so that you can then show up for others. And I know you work with a lot of mothers, or are focused on working with mothers, and that's certainly someone who I see really struggle with this often. Right? Is you have your kids and family, maybe a partner, you have work. There's all of these different things going on in places where you feel a responsibility, of course, to show up for, but what that often does is it puts that individual kind of at the bottom of their own to-do list. So I'd love to hear your experience and in that space, and then just why you feel like it's important to show up for yourself first, so that you can be that person that you want to be for everyone else, or all the other responsibilities in your life.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So, and you can't give what you don't have. So if you don't love yourself first, how are you going to love your loved ones and further your relationships and sort of move forward, right? And I've sort of experienced that. I've had these little, probably big, right, aha moments. So being a mother, I worked in the Fortune 500 environment for over 25 years, right? And I had, my daughters now are 15 and 13. But I worked for many, many years where I was trying to show up fully for them and trying to show up fully for work, right? And neglecting myself. So I would go to work. I would try to be 100% at work, do everything at work, come home, try to check the box. I said yes to everything. I was on the board, wanted to hide that I had a professional life. And then when I was at work, I was trying to hide that I had a personal life. And I would have to do something with my children, and I would be like, oh, I have a doctor's appointment. I'm not really going to their game, and things like that. I wanted to be like very corporate, right? So I let go, and there were many instances where, and then I'd come home and I not finish something at work. I'd come home and I've had dinner with my kids. And then, I would like sort of check the box there and not be fully present because I would be thinking about what was going on at work and what I left there. And then I'd be like, okay, let's go on to the next activity. Let me drive you here. And I never really had a chance to it was just checking the box. I was physically there, but I wasn't mentally present. Right. And then one morning I'm like making lunch for my kids, and then I'd come home and I'd put them to bed, and then I'd like start drinking wine, and then I could like eat some ice cream and I'd watch some Netflix. I had a bad day that happened. I had a good day that happened. Right. So then
Right.
like one morning, I was making lunches. My older daughter says to me, like, you look horrible and you're always in a bad mood. And I was like, wow. Right. So from there, I was like, that was like my big moment where I was like, I have two little girls that I'm raising here, right? And they're very busy. And so from there, I was like, went to go see a coach. She helped me very much to give me tools. And then I'm like, she's on to something here, right? Then from there, it sort of snowballed, so I was like self-care, not having these bad relationships, saying no to things, setting boundaries. And I became a coach. I ended up, still working. I got my MBA. I really think that a lot of self-care has to do with learning. And I don't mean formal learning. I mean like asking people stories and their experiences. Right now, being here with you is a form of self-care for me because it's learning from you, right? And then, from there, I also went back and I got a master's degree, something I'm very passionate about cognitive learning and teaching adults, right? So I got a master's degree from Georgetown in adult learning. And then from there, I got a bunch of coaching degrees. I'm also a mother of athletes. So my daughters compete on a global level for Irish dance, and we travel the world doing that. Most recently, we were just in Nashville at Nationals. So I do know the performance aspect of that. And I just, and another, I'm sorry, and then I'll just let you talk. There was another incident actually where, we talk about neglect. Like, so I was running that marathon, right? And doing all of that stuff. And for months, this is another story. I had it like a pain in my arm and I ignored it. And I was like, so if my daughter had a pain in her arm, she would be at the doctor the next day, right? I had a pain for months. So I go to the doctor and the doctor's like, and this poor man, it was like, he was probably like just graduated from medical school like the day before. think because my doctor was on vacation. So he takes my blood pressure, right? Like my doctor's on vacation. It's like the first time I'm seeing this young gentleman, right? Like seriously, he was like a 12-year-old doctor. It was like Doogie Howser. So I'm like, so my blood pressure is like off the charts, and I got transported to emergency room because like my blood pressure is off the charts because I'm not taking care of myself. I'm eating badly. I'm drinking badly. I'm not exercising like I did. I was an avid group exercise instructor before I had children. I taught spin. I taught everything under the sun. Stopped doing all of that because I had to take care of other people. So I get transported to the emergency room. They don't even know what's going on. And they say to me, I think that you're having an aortic separation and I live in New York. We have to transport you to Columbia Medical Center in New York City. So finally they got it under control. They realized with a bunch of tests, they realized that it was but it was high blood pressure because high blood pressure is extremely dangerous. So since then I've, just really invested myself, and not invest in myself has made my whole family happier. My husband happier. I'm a better wife. I'm a better mother. I'm a way better mother. I'm a way better wife. I'm a better sister. I'm a better sister-in-law, better daughter. In the process of the whole thing, and like physical fitness has always been very much an interest to me. And I've gone up and down and up and down and up and down, tried every diet in the world. I really honed in on my healthy habits, lost over 60 pounds of just weight that I was carrying around, and it's been sustainable. So I wouldn't say it was a diet. I transformed my healthy eating habits, right? And I realized that you need to have and I think that, I really want to talk to you about this. I think that you need to have a mastery orientation within whether you're, instead of a performance orientation, right? And I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I couldn't agree more. I think that there is often in kind of the health and wellness space, and I think largely because of just all of the marketing out there, right? It's like the next greatest, latest, best thing. There's a mindset oftentimes where people go into, we could call it self-care, we could call it health and wellness, we could, whatever language kind of resonates with however we come at it, with this kind of race to fix it, right? Okay, what's the fastest way that I can get to the place that I want to be, because I'm not my best self now, or I'm not satisfied with where I'm at, or I see the opportunity for growth. And so we just try to, what can I do in 8 weeks, right? It's like, it's diet plans. It's all these, right? Everything has these very tight timelines. Okay, wait, 90 days to this, 8 weeks to 12 weeks to, and I think to your point, I guess that's how I think about this mastery component, which is, what can I do to put the pieces in place where this is a part of just who I am, right? And what that means is that I'm going to work every day to show up as the best version of myself. That starts with valuing myself and valuing my time and my energy, and making sure that I pour a portion of that time and energy back into myself, right? Whether that's diet, or including how we fuel our bodies, how we move our bodies, how we refuel our mental and emotional health, right? What do we do to make sure that there is space for these things that especially if you're a high driver, we prize now this just go, always on mentality. And I think that there's so much opportunity for growth when it comes to people with big goals, people that are driven and are focused, but that we have, to your point, you have to pour back into yourself. So mastery for me is that realization, and that real kind of, I think almost like a comfort, or an acceptance, or an excitement even for the fact that this is something that's ongoing, right? We're not, it's not a race, it's not a sprint. We don't get to some end goal and say, okay, this is it, now I can stop. It's, what do I do every day that feels sustainable and feels fulfilling so that I can show up as the best version of myself which allows me to show up as the best version, my best version for other people. And so, yeah, I love that word mastery. I haven't thought about it through that lens, and maybe that doesn't actually get to the point you were talking about, but that's what comes to mind when you said that. I was like, yeah, it's really like, it's that constant, consistent application of knowing that it requires effort, right? And it requires focused energy, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile. It actually means that it's the most important thing in my mind, right? That our ability to refill our own cup so that we can go out into the world and make an impact on other people, right? Whether that's our family, whether that's our coworkers, whether that's businesses we run, whatever situation that is. So, was I way off the mark? What comes to mind? Yeah, like how do you think about that mastery piece?
So the mastery piece to me, it's designed in my mind to increase competency and also increase resilience, right? And it ensures long-term success, so rather than focus on one goal, right? You're focusing on improving a little bit each time, right? And understanding also that there are external factors that you can't control, right? There are many different, and I just had this really, I coach my daughters, right? They have obviously Irish dance teachers, but, from, I think motherhood is coaching, right? But so, we really, and one of my younger daughter, has a lot of anxiety. She has a lot of performance anxiety. So she's getting on the stage, and we were just in Nashville last week. And, there are external factors. And so she gets on stage, and she is a very powerful dancer. She bumps into the dancer that's on stage with her, is afraid that she hurt the dancer, and turns around and apologizes and asks if she's okay, doesn't miss a beat on stage, and performs beautifully. That's not what you're supposed to do on stage. However, so she didn't do as well as she thought, right? As she would have done, right? So, there are 5 judges there that in Irish dance and judging, and like in skating, it's very subjective, right? So they're looking, and to their defense, they're doing their job. They're looking, they're judging 200 dancers. They're like, oh, she screwed up. She's out. I don't need to look at her anymore. Right. So like, that's the sport that she decided to join. So we go back to the hotel room. She'd been up since 6 o'clock in the morning. She's 13 years old. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. Obviously she was very upset. So I didn't really expect her to be very logical at that point. Right. The next day we spoke, she ended up like having her pity party, went to sleep. The next day we spoke, and we spoke about her being a beautiful dancer. Right. And one performance and it was a national competition. It was very disappointing for her. She didn't qualify for Worlds, which she probably would have had she not made that decision. But she said, I would do it again. I thought I hurt the girl. And I said, well, you're a beautiful dancer, and one performance and one competition does not define you. And she agreed with me, and we moved on. And it was a beautiful thing. She had her little pity party because she was exhausted. The next day we had a discussion. We haven't talked about it since. So like, it's very much, I try to instill, it's the process in them. I try to still instill myself that I have a process as well. It goes from there. Everybody has a process, right? Whether you're a mountain climber, whether you're a human, you have a process. Everybody has a process, and we can't be hard on ourselves. We have to say, a lot of times we'll be so hard on ourselves, and I'll say to somebody, if your friend was going through this, right? Well, I'll get a client that will say, I'm the worst mother. I can't believe I did that, and they don't even realize until you ask the question, hey, if your best friend did this, what would you say to her? And she'd be like, I'd say like, everybody makes mistakes. Right. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't love themselves. They don't do that. They don't take the time to take the step back and really take a step outside their bodies and realize that there aren't external factors, right, that they can control. What you can control is your response, right? Instead of reacting, and to prepare yourself and to make yourself resilient, so that when those external factors happen to you, right, I mean, you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not,
Right.
it's not a catastrophe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
tomorrow's always better. Tomorrow's always a better day, right?
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't give ourselves the grace that we so, often so easily give others. We're, like you said, right, we're quick to kind of give that to a best friend or a family member or whatever, and then we're just our own worst critics and enemies, right? And we get in our way. What what does that resiliency look like for you? How does that show up, or how do you help people find that for themselves? Because I think that's one of those, we hear it and we're like, man, I sure would like to be more resilient. That sounds great. So yeah, like, what does that look like in practice, or how do we get to a place where we're able to pull upon or call upon that resiliency in the moment versus, or maybe just call upon it a little more quickly than get there a little more quickly than kind of wallowing and wondering if we're, messing it all up and we've ruined our lives. And, I think it spirals really quickly. So yeah, what's resiliency kind of look and sound like for you? If you're like me, you know how important it is to fuel your activities and ensure you're recovering properly in between workouts. That's where the Amino Company comes in. With their products, Heal and Perform, I'm able to access sustained energy and increase power output during my workouts, as well as recover faster and more efficiently. I use Heal for recovery. It's a 100% science-backed formula that was originally developed for astronauts to maintain muscle mass in space. Taking Heal after my training has allowed me to increase my recovery and decrease soreness, making my body feel stronger and healthier overall. This patented science-backed amino acid blend is designed to replenish your sore muscles after tough workouts. Heal's great for post-workout nutrition and is scientifically more than 3 times more efficient at triggering muscle growth and repair than any other protein source. Perform is my go-to for before and during training sessions. Perform has been scientifically proven to improve muscle performance, reduce fatigue and recovery times, and increase the benefits from your workouts. Perform is formulated to minimize muscle breakdown during exercise and maximize muscle growth after exercise. Since taking Perform, I've seen increases in my maximal strength in the gym, as well as feel the benefits during endurance training. It provides sustained and lasting energy throughout my day without any crash or harmful side effects. I've been using Perform and Heal from the Amino Company daily, and I've seen huge improvements in both my performance and recovery. As a business owner and athlete, I'm beyond excited to have found something that helps me get the most out of my training and recovery so that I can maximize my precious training time. So right now, when you visit aminoco.com/EM30 and use the discount code EM30 at checkout, you get 30% off. So if you're looking to take your recovery to the next level and try science-backed products designed to boost your performance by up to 3 times, then visit aminoco.com/EM30 and use the discount code EM30, that's EM30 at checkout, to get 30% off plus a free gift with purchase. That's aminoco.com/EM30. Use offer code EM30 at checkout.
So resiliency, I mean, like, I think that, there's no magic pill, right? I struggled very much so with anxiety all of my life and being overwhelmed, right? And I didn't really get it into check until I was in my 40s. So the key is practice, right? And I think that the key is to get that clutter out of your life, right? If something does not make you lighter, that relationship, that event, that job, try to work it out of your life. You only want something that makes you lighter. You don't need anything that weighs you down, right? And so often we have these social influencers, right? Where we're like, oh, I have to go, for instance, like I have to go to that dinner with the bunch of moms, or, I have to go to that dinner with my golf buddies, right? Because if I don't show up, what are they going to think? Well, authentically, you don't enjoy it. There's a reason, right? Don't do it. And that will make you more resilient. Then once you start saying no to those things, and once you put those things into practice, and it's the repetitiveness, like there's no quick fix. It's practice and repetitiveness. Being respectful, declining an invitation. You can decline an invitation and be very respectful. Really think about why. Think about your why. Why are you going to these events? Why are you doing these things, right? Is it to show face? Think about how you want to show up every day, right? And I think it was Maya Angelou that said, because if you're showing up and you're really not happy to be there, like how pleasant are you when you get there, right? So I think it was Maya Angelou that said, no one's going to remember, and I'm very much paraphrasing her beautiful words, but no one is going to probably remember what you said. I'm very much paraphrasing, but they'll always know how you made them feel, right? So that is such a powerful thing to think about, right? So you want to show up and you want to make people feel good because you want to feel good. So you really want to do things and practice and be resilient, and then you really have to go. A lot of things are visualization as well. I do a lot of visualization where I'm like, okay, let me look back. And I ask my clients to do this. Let me think about a time that I thought it was a total catastrophe and I learned from it. Everything you learn from, every single aspect, whether it's good or bad, is a learning situation. Like there's no way that you go through anything in life that you don't learn from. So that to me, and I 100% believe this, is that everything's positive because you learn from everything and learning is positive. So rather, I lost my dad 8 years ago and he was my best friend and it was horrible. But I've learned a tremendous amount. I've grown a tremendous amount from it. It's been mind-blowing to me. If I had my choice, would I have my father back right now? Yes. However, and I fall apart at the time. That was 8 years ago. That was before I really started taking care of myself. Yeah. I was a mess, right? If I had to go through that again right now, it would be a way different story. And I would handle it way, way better because I learned how to take care of myself. And it really is just looking and visualizing and saying, hey, what happened in the past? I thought it was horrible. Ended up being pretty good. I ended up learning a lesson from it, right? You really just have to really consciously and intentionally think about the past and think about what happened and what happened as a result of it. And also being present, really taking a step back. I mean, I said before, like I used to come home, have dinner, check the box, and really not be present, right? Now I'm present with my daughters. I make sure I have 2 of them, and I know people have, God bless them, have like 5 children, but I make it a point to be very, very intentional to have alone time with them, be present with them, do something that they like to do that we can share in, and be present with them, right? Because those are what count, right? And that makes you resilient, and that strengthens ties in your relationship. And then when you have those strong relationships, you can't do anything alone. You have people to lean on, right? I make it a point to, take a walk with my sister when we can. And we usually try to do it every weekend, to strengthen those ties. I need her. I need her, and it makes me resilient. Like go and leverage your community, your tribe, I call it, your friends, your sisters, your family. Lean on people so that they can lean on you because, it feels damn good when somebody can lean on you and you can help them. Right? That makes you resilient too.
I mean, I think so often, we want to invest that time in those relationships, but we have a hard time saying no. right? I mean, back to your point about saying no is like, I talk to so many people all the time that are overwhelmed and feel spread too thin and can't figure out how to focus their energy on the things that they do want because they're spending so much time on the things that aren't adding value, right? There's, yeah, okay, I got to go say yes to this work thing, or I got to do more work, or the event, or the right, name a thing, right? The list goes on and on. There's so many opportunities on a daily basis to put energy in the direction of things that truly aren't adding value, taking us towards our goals, making us happy, bringing joy. Like you said, I love how you said, like, making you feel lighter. So because I think, like, I've talked about this a lot because it's something I've seen show up in such a big way in my life is thinking very critically about, does this thing really bring value? Does it support me as a person, who I want to be, how I want to show up in the world? And if not, like, do I need to say no to it? And it's hard because to say no is hard, right? For whatever reason. So I'd love for you to just, I don't know, maybe expand on that, like, skill set of saying no, identifying what we need to say no to, and then how to actually do it. Because I talk people, they're like, oh, this thing sucks. I don't want to be at this event. Why did I go? I wish I would have stayed home with my kids. I wish I would have gone for a walk, right? I mean, but we do it. You still go, and you're like, damn it, like, what a waste of time, so yeah, what is that skill set for you, and how do people develop that so that they can invest more time in the places and relationships that actually are fulfilling? If we could do that, we would solve, like, a massive portion of people's that overwhelm and that feeling of just, frustration, I think, that so many people are walking around with. So yeah, what's that kind of look and sound like for you?
So yeah, in the past, I was the queen of not setting boundaries. The queen, because I wanted to prove myself on all ends, right? I wanted to prove myself at work, and I wanted to prove myself at home, right? So, and what I've learned is, you don't have to go balls to the wall with everything, right? You can do a little bit, right, to feel helpful. So what I used to do, like, if I wanted to join, like, a parent association, I would be the president of the parent association. Like, I didn't just sign up to volunteer for an event. But you need to do that because, like, I'll tell you the truth. When I'm president of an association, I'm a driver. Like, I'm good at what I do and I enjoy it, but I don't have the time to do that. Right. And it ends up weighing me down. I am a helper. I'm a giver. I really very much enjoy helping people. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy helping people. I'll, like, if I can help you, I will. Like, that's just, it's innate. It's in me. I'll see something like a job, a job posting, and I'll be like, oh, I talked to somebody 5 weeks ago that I hardly know, but I'm going to reach out to her because I think she'd be perfect for this. Like, I'll do things like that. However, that comes with a cost because I help so much that when I don't get appreciated, I'm like, I get angry, right? So that's not healthy. That's not healthy. So I really have to take a step back. And I'm not saying that I don't help, but I don't have to be the president. I don't have, there's plenty of room at the top. Like, we can all take turns when we have time, right? When we have time to do it. And I'm not saying that I won't have time to be the president a year from now, but right now I don't. So we really need to evaluate what we have the bandwidth and the time to do in the present moment, right? We may be going through having a senior in high school and we're trying to get through college applications, right? You don't have the time for things, but next year you do, right? So when you're saying no to something, you could say, hey, I would really enjoy to do this. It's in my wheelhouse, right? And that's why you're asking me. Thank you so much for asking me, because it is a compliment when somebody asks you to do something. It's very much a compliment. They're saying they like you. They're complimenting you. It's saying, we think you are awesome, right? But X, Y, and Z, I do not have time because I'm trying to get my child off to college, or I just got a promotion at work, or maybe I have 50 new clients that I'm just onboarded. And when I have onboarded them and I have more time, then I can take up this project, right? Because there's always a reason that you can't do something. Like it's not like for most people, they want to help. Most people want to help because it feels good to help. So you evaluate, do you have the time for this? If you don't, you have to be very honest with yourself and then explain to the person X, Y, and Z. However, let me get back to you when I have the time. Or I can't be the president, but I'd like to help for 2 hours on one day that you have an event. And people will be like, oh, So just recently, my daughter was doing lacrosse and there was a whole plant cell and they were swamped. And I felt for them, right? Because I was like, oh my gosh, I could run this whole thing and I can help them and I can put on all this time. But I was like, you can't, right? You can't. Mm-hmm. So what I did was, because it was like a long process, there was a lot of work that went. So I called the woman that was in charge of it and I said, I don't have time right now to do a lot, but I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed. So I have these 3 hours on this Friday and I'd like to deliver plants for you. She said, that is awesome. Thank you so much for it. And that's exactly what I had time for. I felt awesome about it. I was able to help her a little bit and we're fine. And I said, next year, I'll let you know when the plant sale comes. And if I can do more, I will, but I will do a little bit of something that I can handle.
Yeah. Yeah. There's there's a real opportunity for confidence there too, right? To be like very confident in what we can give at any given time and know that that is perfectly acceptable and great. And most people will love it if you just show up in that capacity in whatever way you can. But it takes a little bit of work to get there. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like to have that confidence to say, okay, I'm not going to be, or I can't be, or I don't have the bandwidth to be the president, but I can do this, right? There's a bit of a bridge there to build to get that confidence or to feel that kind of self-assuredness to say, I'm still contributing. I'm still showing up. But this is just where I'm at. I don't know. Is that how it kind of feels, or is confidence a part of the language that you would use to kind of describe that transition into saying no? Is also that a bit of like a confidence component?
There is a confidence component. Yes, there is. And it took a while for me to build up the confidence, right? It does take a while, but there's also a self-awareness component, right? Which is stronger than the confidence component, because when you have self-awareness, confidence comes, right? You really need to be aware and discover that awareness, right? And then when you discover that awareness, right, you need to be aware. You need to discover that you're, what I do in my coaching is like, okay, let's gain this awareness. You're overwhelmed. That's your awareness, right? Then you need to accept it. I'm overwhelmed because of X, Y, and Z, right? Here's what's weighing me down. Here's what's making me lighter. Then you go from there. And when you can be aware and then you can accept it, when you accept it, that builds your confidence, right? So there's like steps to go in, right? So it's structured, right? The way you can go about it and the way I went about it. Then when you accept it, right, it enables you to open your mind and to make clear choices, right? So you need to be aware of what's going on. Most people are aware that they're overwhelmed because they're stressed out, right? So the awareness isn't really like the problem. Accepting that you are not a superhero and you can't do everything and you need to ask for help and you need to taper it down and get rid of things, right? So that's an acceptance, and it depends on your personality and where you are in your life, how well you can accept that, right? It depends on a lot of aspects, right? There's a lot of people that are perfectionists out there. It's very, very hard for them to accept that they can't do everything. And then moving forward, once you can accept it, you can make all the clear choices in the world. So the power is in accepting, right? Accepting. And in accepting, you build the confidence, And if you look around, you look around and I see people and I'm like, they're so overwhelmed. Like I see people in the supermarket, I see people in, the Jiffy Lube, and I'm like, oh, like I can help you. Like, why are you doing this? You don't need to be doing this. Like you see, people making choices that are so easy not to do that make your life easier, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's some things that are so easy not to do, and they're little things. And they'll make it will give you freedom and liberation. And people don't think outside of the box and have those clear make the ability to see those clear choices. And that's where I help, where I'm like, hey, this is like, I ask a bunch of questions, right? I don't tell people what to do. I ask a bunch of questions. I'm like, and why are you doing that? And they're like, I don't know. And how is that serving you? How is that serving your daughter and your family and your husband and yourself and your mental health? And it's not. Oh, it's not. Right? Like I get a lot of that. Or what evidence do you have to support that assumption? Oh, I don't. That's what I think they're thinking. Right?
Right. Yeah,
I get a lot of that.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I have no evidence, right? I mean, I have a 15-year-old. I have to be like, how do you know that? How do you know they're saying that? Right? But it goes with everybody in life, right? I'm like, why do you think, I had one gentleman, he owned a business and he was saying, I can't retire. And he was at retirement age. I can't retire because they're so dependent on me financially. He meant his partners, right? And I said, so when they told you, and this was like, I didn't think, I said, so when they told you that they were so dependent on you financially, I said to him, because I coach other people other than mothers. I coach business owners as well and executives. So this was a business owner. And I said, your partners, how did they tell you? And he goes, they never told me. I just assumed it I said, you don't know? And he goes, I don't know about their financials. And he was like weeks and like maybe even a month, he was going through this. I can't retire because, and then he had the conversation and they're not. I was like, oh my gosh. So it was like an insight he had. He goes, oh, I was just taking this on myself. And it was weeks and probably a month he was having this inner dialogue, thinking this. We all do it.
For sure. Yeah. Just to go back for a second, what role does the putting yourself first and prioritizing yourself so you can show up for others, does that play a role in our ability to say no and prioritize how we spend our time? Do you see, is there a link there for you, like that, if and when we can put ourselves first, then that seems to maybe help to mitigate that overwhelm or some of that stress or anxiousness or that feeling like we need to say yes? Or are those two things mutually exclusive? I'm just curious. No. Yeah.
So your question was, I just want to repeat it so that I understand that I have it right. So self-care, right? And then being able to say no and set boundaries, are they mutually exclusive or they just sort of go hand in hand? Was that your question?
Yeah, exactly. I was curious in your experience if when someone is able to prioritize themselves, are they also able to then show up in ways that are more like authentic, meaning that they can say no and they have that confidence and that, everything that we just kind of talked about. Do you see those things going hand in hand or is there no link there?
100%. Right?
Yeah.
Because when you are, I'll just give an example. I've been very much, and I'd love to know, I've been very much concentrating on sleep lately for myself and for my daughters because I just, sleep is it really is, it just makes or breaks you, right? Mm-hmm. Rest makes or breaks you, and that's why I loved your podcast on the seasons, right? And taking a break. Like when I heard that, I was like, I love this. This is really good. And like, this guy's good. But taking a break, right? But sleeping, you can avoid like all like diseases, you show up better, you're clear-minded, So I'm very much, I'm authentic. Like I don't guide people to do anything that I don't do in my own home or I don't, So I had a talk with my girls and my husband and I said, I don't think I've been sleeping well. at all lately. And I think it's really affecting me, right? So what we did was, my husband's very handy. Like, I was like, I want these walls painted. I want a new bed. We got a reasonable priced bed, right? And he painted the walls. I set up some lavender infusion. I bought like this infusion thing on Amazon for $6. And I'm sleeping wonderfully. Did some moves and uncluttering with my daughters. Nothing cost a lot of money. And then I, said to them very clearly, I need sleep. Like, if I am asleep, this is when I'm going to go to bed. Like, I'm not like, I go to bed at 9:00. I'm like, I need sleep. If I'm sleeping, try to be quiet. You need to sleep at this time. So they said to me, my older daughter was like, wow, this sleep thing is working, because like, you're like focused lately, like, and I'm pretty focused most of the time, but she was like, yeah. And she goes, and I've been doing it too. And she goes, and I feel like I'm clearer. And then she said that she got into an argument with her friend, and she goes, and I was able to like really like calm down and have the conversation with her. Right. And she goes, you think it has something to do with sleep? And I was like, yeah, it's called self-care.
Yeah.
And then when I have time, like when, like and this has to do with confidence, and this has to do with time and everything like that. But when you start doing these things and people start to see the results of it, like my husband, I'm like, you know what? I need to read a book right now, right? Like, or I'll say, I need like 10 minutes. And like, sometimes I'm like, I just need 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes. Self-care, right? Give me 10 minutes. I need 10 minutes before we have this conversation. I know you want to get to it, but I need 10 minutes. Then you're able to make clear choices. You're able to unclutter your life. You're able to really think about things, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it goes hand in hand, right? And then, but also, like another point that I'd like to get to is like, so, and it's also how you ask people to do things, right? It's also, so my husband's very, and my kids, I mean, like, they're not perfect. No one's perfect. I'm not going to say that I don't argue with my children and my husband, like, like we don't have disagreements. But it's very much in the delivery. It's very much in how I ask them to have a break. Things like that. So like, I'm not going to come home and ask my husband to have a conversation. Right. So this is an example. So like, I will, like sometimes I'm like, oh, I lined up like 3 appointments for tomorrow. I need my husband's help at this time. Right. So I'm not going to come home, burst through the door and say, I have 3 appointments tomorrow. You need to pick up. Right. And this is learned because I used to do that. Right. And what do you think he did? What are you even talking about? I like what, like, that's how he used to respond. What you give out, that's what you get back, right? So you need to be respectful of people's time. So what I do now is, right, and this came from like a lot of reading, working with coaches and things like that, right? And I didn't just say, hey, Stacy, like, but it takes time, repetitiveness, seeing what happens, thinking back. Remember that time that I burst in yelling about what he had to do the next day, besides asking him? So I always go in and I say, all right, hey, example, I have a busy day tomorrow. I know you just got home. First, how was your day? How are you? And with anybody, whether you're in a supermarket or anything like that, hey, how are you? Right? Where's the juice? But like, you walk into your house, you're like, hey, how are you? How was your day? Not great. All right. And I say, okay, listen, I need to talk to you about our schedule tomorrow. Let me know is now a good time. He'll be like, now it's not a good time. Okay, let me know when is a good time, because I need to talk about it before tomorrow. And he'll say, okay, let me eat. Let me sit down and watch the news. I'm going to take a shower. We'll do 15 minutes tonight. And I'm like, totally fine. Do it with my daughter too. I do it with my daughters too. I'll walk in the room. I really didn't like the way my daughter was talking to me a few weeks ago, my 13-year-old. Walked in, I said, hey, my feelings are pretty hurt about the way you're speaking with me. Is now a good time to talk about it? And she was like, nope. And I said, okay, when is it? And she goes, I'm watching a YouTube video right now, probably a little bit later. Never, ever, ever with the 3 of them, or other relationships with my sisters too, have I ever asked permission and then the second time went back, have they said no to me? Right? So then that frees me to be like, okay, it's going to be taken care of later. Right? It checks the box for me. Then I can move on. We can all make clear choices together. So there's like, it all goes hand in hand. It's like a system.
Right. Yeah.
I
think it's a great point. Is, I think we have a tendency to
we want to like compartmentalize everything, right? We're like, okay, this is like this box, and this happens in a vacuum, right? Like, okay, I have work, right, for instance, and then I have family, and then there's my like self-care or physical health, or my I want to exercise, and then that's in a box, and and it's all these things, and then we don't give ourselves the opportunity to see that, like, when there's cohesion among those things, it actually works out so much better, right? To just communicate and say, like, I talk about this with exercise all the time with people. It's like, they're like, I can't find the time, right? That's of course the biggest barrier for most people. I'm like, well, have you communicated with the people around you that you would like to make that time? Right? Have you talked to your kids or your partner or your boss or your, like, whoever, and maybe it's all those people, to say, hey, this is something that's really important to me, and I think it's actually going to allow me to show up better in our relationship. Can I take 30 minutes at lunch to go for a walk? Can I, when I get home, can you watch the kids for 15 minutes and just let me stretch in the morning, right? Whatever. It doesn't have to be some big heroic grand effort. And so often people are like, no, but I have been mad at them for not letting me do it. I'm like, well, you didn't say anything, right? They're like, well, that's work, that's exercise, not family. I'm like, well, they're the same thing, right? You're living a life. The day is fluid. Your month, your year, everything is just building on itself. And it's amazing when people actually communicate that, and they're like, oh man, like, they actually want that for me. And I've been over here mad at them and frustrated with myself and worried that I wasn't doing X, Y, and Z right. And all I had to do was say, hey, I'd love to make time in the morning. If you could just, make the kids breakfast while I get, and they're like, happy to do that. Great. And then the reciprocal of that is the other person says, hey, can you do this for me another time? And you'd say, yeah, absolutely. So now, like, it's elevating everyone's experience in relationship. I don't know, do you find that, like, in the clients that you work with, or I guess even maybe your own life and your own experiences, like this compartmentalization, and people are like, nope, this is this box. And you're like, well, what about this box over here? And they're like, oh, wait, I didn't realize that box was hanging out with this box.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are those conversations you're having, or what's your experience there?
Yeah, I just had a client say to me, we were making an appointment, and she's like, oh, let me get to my work calendar. I was like, why do you have two calendars? I was like, you're one person. I was like,
yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Go anywhere on time, right? But yeah, you're one person, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I do have that experience. Like, so I've asked clients, I've said, so I don't have time for that. That is my favorite. I don't have time for that. I'm like, so what are you doing that's weighing you down, that's not making you lighter, that you can get rid of? Like, that's the first step, right? And then this is the question I ask: how have you communicated with your partner that you would like to do that? I haven't. They should just know. No one's a mind reader. And right. I thought that way too, right? I was like, oh, I'm the mom. I do everything. Da, da, da. And I was, being very controlling, right? Being very controlling. I was like, oh, this is the way I do it. This is, I married my husband because we have the same values. We love each other and we have the same values. Like, not everything's like peachy all through you go through things, right? But for the most part, we have the same values, right? Like, he loves my children. And I wasn't giving him a chance, right? I was saying, he should know. I like to work out. Now I can't work out. I have kids. And like, I went through a stage where I didn't work out because, like, I was afraid to ask him, or I was afraid not to be the perfect mom that made their meals, right? I made my own baby food. Looking back, I'm like, like, I did it for the health of my children. I did. However, I also did it for me to prove to myself that I was like a superhero, they could have had some Gerbers,
right.
But I was like, there were things like that where I was very controlling, and I never asked him to do things, and it wasn't until, so then when I took a step back and I was, went through everything, and I was like, I have to ask him to do things, right? I have to tell him that it's affecting me. It has improved his it has improved his relationship with my daughters tenfold. They have things that they do together. he is like off with them, doing things that I'm not involved in. Not, like when I don't have time for things, it's not like I have to teach him if he goes to an event with my child, what to do when he gets there. I said before that they dance. My husband can do a bun wig. We have to put wigs in their hair better than I can. But that wasn't always the case, because I was like, you can't do this. You can't do this, right? One morning I woke up and I was like, I'm so tired and I can't go. It was like when I was going through like the transition of like really trying to take care of myself. I was like, I'm going to do it today. And, what if they don't show up in their hair in a wig? And I said to him, I said, I can't go today. You need to take them. It's called a fesh. You need to take them to the fesh. And he was like, well, who's going to do their hair? I'm like, can you figure it out? And he was like, I'm going to try. So he got out a YouTube video. He tried. And now he's better at me than that, and like, and they sometimes they're like, this is a tough competition. We don't want you there. We want him there. And it works. It works. They're happier. Their father is invested in their activities. And I was holding him back. I was robbing him of his time with his children because I thought I could only do it right. And I had to do it because I was the mom. Right. Yeah. So, and that's with anything. You put all this pressure on yourself thinking that, oh, you do it perfect. I can't let anybody down. I can't tell anybody that I can't do it. I have to, there's plenty of room at the top, and it's nice. It's nice to be able to, he felt very successful. He was like, well, look what I can do. Right.
Yeah.
So, and it improved his relationship with me, with his children, with my children. Sometimes they don't want mom around all the time.
Right.
Yeah,
it's like you're saying earlier, people want to help. And I think so often we don't give people the opportunity to actually like step up and step into that role, right? Like a support role, because we're afraid that whether it's, they're going to say no, or they're going to judge us, or they're going to think that there's all these, we ascribe all of these roles and these meanings like to ourselves internally, right? Like I have to be this person and I have to make the time. And instead of just asking, well, I'll just get up at 3 a.m. to do this, right? Or I'll get, whatever the solution is that we fabricate in our minds. And there's such an opportunity for, just to like invite people in and say like, hey, this is something that's important to me. How, is there a way you'd like to support me in that? Is there a way you'd like, especially with like time management, right? Like you said, like that's everybody's thing, right? That's everybody's stumbling block, or perceived stumbling block, is that they don't have time, and they don't know where to find the time. They feel like they're maxed out, and I think that there's so much we can do there to help undo that. I know one of the things you've talked about is like asking. I guess we've kind of been dancing around it, but just to touch on it specifically, you've talked about like asking your partner for help, and like that it's okay to say like, hey, I need help, or can you support me in this? What other ways? I mean, we've talked about kind of time management and stuff, but I guess just specifically, like how does that conversation help the people that you work with, show up for themselves or take care of some of that overwhelm or whatever, language is they're using to describe what's keeping them from how they want to live their lives.
So asking for help, it never really occurs to people to ask, right? And it never really occurs to people, to ask. They just think that they should. A lot of people are very overwhelmed. So they're like trying to, unfortunately, they'll walk into a situation, try to have a conversation and demand an audience. That doesn't work. Like, could you imagine waking somebody up out of a deep sleep and asking them to do something? What kind of result are you going to get? Right. So, so being very intentional about really thinking about what you need authentically, what you need to be successful, how you need to take care of yourself, and then like you said, communicating that. People are not communicating. I didn't communicate for a very long time. I just did something last week where I'm like, whoa, I really failed that communication, but I can't, I beat myself up about it for about a day or two, but like move on. I'm not going to do that again. But I know what I did communication wise, and I'm not going to do it again. Right. So you learn from these things. I'm not going to say I'm like, I communicate perfectly. That is not the case. I become better and I'm 1% better every day. And that's what I hold myself accountable to, is to be 1% better. But communication is so key. Like, people do not read minds, right? And the way you communicate, think about it, being respectful to people and speaking to people respectfully, and being respectful of other people's time, being respectful of other people's feelings, because you would want people to be respectful to you. Right. So it goes both ways, right? And it really, you really need to, and I can't say it enough, like what you give out into the universe is what you get back in, right? So if you get on the phone with the phone company and you're screaming at them about why your cell phone doesn't work, my system just died, disconnected, right? What are you going to get?
Yeah.
What are you going to get? The gentleman or, the person on the other line is not going to respond well to you screaming, and they're not going to want to help you. And you know what? Their system went down. You're disconnected. Now you're on hold for another hour and a half. To take the time to say, hey, how was your day today? I mean, it works with everything in life. To take the time to say, hey, how was your day today? The person on the other line is going to say, oh, I really want to help this person. They asked me how I was. And how long did that take you? 30 seconds.
It's like the what's the old saying? It's more flies with honey than vinegar, right? You attract more flies with honey.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
No, I totally agree. I mean, there's so much, and I think too, just in terms of like when we think about goal setting, or we think about like what we want to accomplish, or we think about moving forward in a career or whatever that is, I think there's so much opportunity for just a mindset shift to know that if you show up and you put that out in the world, that like the sum total of that will cumulatively add up to like taking you where you want to go, right? Like there's so much of, we put a lot of emphasis on like, okay, I'm gonna like, did this thing equal the outcome that I wanted, yes or no, right? There's kind of this like immediate, we put a lot of stock in like immediacy, right? Like, did I do this at work and did it make money? Or did I do this and even my physical health, and like, do I look different, after 1 week of exercise or whatever? And I think there's just hearing you talk, like if you just kind of zoom out and you show up and you do things in alignment with like the person you want to be and what you want to get back, like it can't help but equal what you want it to equal, right? It's just like, you just have to do it consistently enough, right? Like whether it's just like communicating effectively, being nice, right? Like, I don't know. I tell people all the time, like just for myself, I'm like, I just believe that like if I show up in enough of the right opportunities and have enough of the right conversations, it's going to take me where I want to go. I'm not concerned with whether or not that one specific conversation equaled X, right? I know that it's kind of that mastery, like back to the very beginning of our conversation. It's like, we're all just accruing skills, right? Every opportunity, every touch point, every conversation is a chance to refine how I think about things, learn from other people, build, a repertoire that expands my horizons. And that's all a good thing, right? It's all taking me in the direction that I want to go. And then, if you can refine your communication skills in the process, all the better, right? Like we all need to be better communicators probably, or we all have a chance to improve upon that. So yeah, I love, I don't know, just made me think about that. I think we put so much pressure on like the immediacy of things. When, like you said, it's just like put out into the world what you want to get back. And I promise you, it will lead you in the direction that you want to go. Right. It can't help but equal, something good, versus putting so much pressure on like, I had that conversation with the phone company and that guy was an asshole, and now my whole day's ruined, right? Like, just, that if that conversation goes well, like the next conversation goes well, right? Like, it builds on itself. So, well, Stacy, any closing thoughts? This has been an amazing conversation. I just so value your perspective and what you bring to the table. But yeah, two things: closing thoughts, and then make sure where can people find you, and what can they take advantage of if they want to engage with you more outside of our conversation here.
Yeah, sure. So just closing thoughts, just to piggyback off of what you just said. So like when you identify your core values, right, and you're authentic to yourself, and then you couple that with being consistent on what you want to give out to the world in communications, right? There's no way that you can't be successful, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you're authentic to who you are and you're making yourself lighter, you're successful because you're happier. Right. So that's my closing thought. Right. So that's my closing thought. And that's what I've done, and I'm happier every day. And so, yeah, so I am Stacy Riley Conte. I can be reached. I'm very active on Facebook. Mother's Pathway I'm on Facebook, or Stacy Riley Conte on Facebook. Also, I'm very passionate about what I do, so I have a free gift. If you go to thrivingmomsguide.com, you can get my free gift, which is 5 tips on how to be, more efficient and thrive as a mom. But seriously, it really would pertain to anybody in life, and you don't have to be a mom. But I just named it Thriving Moms Guide. But it is thrivingmomsguide.com. That's where you can go.
Beautiful. Cool. And we'll make sure to drop all that in the show notes as well, so folks can get a hold of you. But yeah, thanks so much, Stacy. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. I know folks are going to get so much value out of this, and look forward to connecting with you in other ways. Thanks for your time.
Great. It was so nice to connect with you live, Taylor. Thank you so much.